So today it's just me and my man Kev, the Big Ten boys, gonna be chatting about the Big Ten matchups of the week: Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan, and Iowa. There's gonna be fireworks on Friday night. They're staggered at what is it, 6:30 and 8:30. So Iowa versus Michigan at 6:30, Penn State, Ohio State at 8:30.
Flip it.
Both on big. Flip that one.
Yeah.
Flip
At
it.
least, yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ohio
Penn
State, Penn
State,
State.
Penn State's first. Yeah, Penn State, Ohio State is first. So 6:30 and 8:30. So we'll have a good bit of fireworks going on Friday night. I'm really looking forward to it. But let's start with Iowa and Michigan overall. Before we get into matchups, individual matchups, what are you thinking team wise? Obviously we've seen Iowa be ultra dominant lately. They gave up two losses in their trip to Illinois. I mean, it just been, like I said, ultra dominant. We got another Ben Keeter sighting up against Northwestern. So it's looked really good for Iowa lately. Michigan, it's been kind of tough, right? Like they have really good guys in the lineup, but they're just not wrestling up to their level. What are your thoughts on it team wise before we even get into some of the better matchups?
So I think team-wise, Iowa, who I had some questions going into the year with, just not necessarily about what the performances could look like or what the results could look like, and whether or not they were going to be a top 5 team in the country. But I wanted to see, we got some new faces in the lineup. We've got some transfers. We've got some freshmen who are expected to do some big things. Are they going to be able to be as advertised? And I feel like it's really kind of slid right into place. They've looked so good. They have so much better, top to bottom, as consistent as you can get. I mean, you got a guy at Zach Glazier at 197 who's kind of slid right into the lineup and has really been what you'd expect out of a guy who's been battling to get that spot for as long as he has. And he's really taken full advantage of every match he has.
Yeah. And one thing that I'm like, no, I shouldn't say struggling with, but I'm trying to take notice of, or at least take note of, is they look a little bit more offensive this year. Normally, not to say that they're Penn State offensive, but normally, you think of Iowa and they're still really good at the hand fight, but that's what you think of. You think of these guys that are going to be just pulling on your head, tugging on your head. And, it's not like they're ultra offensive, but you see them looking to score more, especially Glazer, who you just talked about. Like, he is going out and trying to score a ton of points, and they're moving forward. And, Ayala looks great at 25. Obviously the 125 number one curse kind of bit him pretty quickly, but he's, offensive. These guys are pushing the pace differently than what I've seen them do, at least in the past. So, that's what I really like seeing. And, to your credit, you did say that we were unsure of what we were going to see with Iowa coming into this year because of all the gambling stuff, guys not being in the lineup that we expected to be in the lineup. Obviously the Gable Steveson saga of, is he going to go to Iowa? Are these guys going to be coming back? And then you have all these new faces, and they've really stepped up and they've really done a really good job in the lineup. And, I really do think that Glazer has been ultra competitive and a real leader in that lineup where you weren't expecting him to kind of be that kind of a guy.
Well, to talk to the offensive piece, and this is just me making this up on the fly, right? But like when your back's against the wall, right, you kind of do a little bit more, you kind of fight a little bit harder. I think all of these guys and a couple of the weights, they're shifting dudes around, right? Mm-hmm. So there's always somebody nipping at their heels trying to get into that starting lineup at some of those weights. So they're kind of out there to prove something. They got to go out there and say, hey, I'm, if you're a Cullen Shriever, if you're a Caleb Rathjet, if you're some of those guys where you're getting rotated in and out, and maybe based on results or whatever the circumstances might be, you might not be in the next time. So you got to go out there to score points. You got to go out there to dominate and prove things. And dominate is a word they like to use a lot. So if you're not dominating, they're going to find someone who will.
And on top of that, I think one other thing you can kind of put in there is the fact that they're wrestling a little bit more as a team too. You've seen guys like Gabe Arnold kind of be a spark plug, getting in the lineup for a couple of bouts and, doing a really good job, whether it's 74 or 84, right? So you've seen a really big emphasis on team this year for Iowa. And, who knows? Maybe it's the Spencer Lee factor where you used to have a lot of guys that were big stars that you kind of circled and you really wanted to see. You wanted to see Spencer in the lineup. You wanted to see who else did they have. I mean, you want to see Kemmer in the lineup. Like you had these guys who were perennials that were just like powerhouses. And it was, as they did wrestle as a team, but you just had these giant stars. I don't feel like they have these giant stars anymore, that it is more of Iowa is wrestling cohesively, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're attacking and everything else, where you, like I said, you don't have, the big star like Spencer Lee in the lineup anymore that is kind of pulling his own, being kind of a guy that pulls his own, gravitational pull and
Right.
being a huge giant star.
The sun and everything revolves around it, right?
Exactly, right? Like it just feels a little bit different when you're looking at that team this year. And, I think even Gabe Arnold said it in like an interview that, he was willing to do whatever he needed to do for the team, when he stepped up at 184. So it's just, for me, at least, it's been kind of a different theme when I look at that team this year. But let's get into some of these matchups. What are the ones that really stick out for you between Iowa and Michigan?
So if I'm looking away, it's because I'm looking at my other monitor here, so I'm not trying to be a jerk,
ditto.
right?
A little double monitor going on.
I mean, if we're going to start, weight by weight, I am interested to see Drake Ayala and D'Agostino there. One I don't know if he can grow a beard, and the other has plenty of beard to share if if he needs it. But it's kind of a contrast to styles, right? D'Agostino is really crafty and does some funky rolling around stuff, and can go upper body and throw some junk at you. And that Ayala is going to try to score. He's got some really good single legs. He's got he's going to pressure and put it in there. So that'll be a fun one to see right off the bat. It appears they're going with Schriever at 133. Ragusin has been such a monster this year. I mean,
and he's crafty.
Yeah. Even in the match, last week with Ohio State, I'm blanking on that guy's name. I'm gonna fix it here. Bazakis.
Bazakis.
Yeah. So, Bazakis was attacking him really well.
He goes hard.
Yeah, and I know he lost the match, but I was impressed with his approach and his physicality and everything. And it just seemed like every time in that match, Ragusin was able to kind of, shrug something off and end up, on an ankle and turn in the corner quick, or, whatever the circumstances were. It seemed like he was just kind of flipping the script on him whenever, the pressure would be put on by Bazakis. So that'll be interesting to see. I'd almost rather see a more aggressive Ragusin, but hey, he's winning matches and it's clearly working for him, so that works.
A part of me wants to see Real Woods and Ragusin wrestle, mostly because they're both Izzy style guys.
Yeah.
And that might result in some punches being thrown because they're just, as Izzy would say, just absolute gangsters. Obviously we're not going to get that one, but that's a really good test for Schriever up against Ragusin. 41, Real Woods, what can you say about him? Like, he just goes absolutely hard, and he's going to be taking on your boy Lemley, who has looked really, really good. I mean, just got that win over Mitch Moore. Mitch Moore, obviously one of the stingiest guys to wrestle against, and he put up 10 points against him, right? So just that's impressive, for a young guy, and it's going to be, it only gets harder from here when he takes on Real Woods.
For sure. And I will comment real quick, and this is not, I want it to be very, very clear before I make the comment. This is not to take anything away from the Buckeyes win over the Wolverines last Friday. They absolutely earned it. They looked awesome in the back half of that duel. Fantastic job, right? I think everybody was kind of bummed to not see that match. My understanding was Lemley had a skin condition. He didn't pass the skin check. And, because he's been wrestling so well, they didn't bring anybody else, right? They didn't expect to have that happen. So I assume that's been cleared up now. would love to see Lemley and Woods. Woods has been so good. He's been so dominant all year. He really looks like at times he's trying to make a statement that, yep, no doubt about it, I'm going in as the number one guy and get out of the way. So that'll be good. I mean, you're going to have the upperclassmen against the true freshman who's just been getting better every time his skin is cleared.
Yeah, right. Like that's kind of tough to go about it. 49 isn't really a thing, I don't think. I mean, Fidel Mayor is doing his best to kind of fill the shoes, but that's tough to do. So I think Ratchie will be very ready for that match, and he may go look for bonus in that one because I think if Michigan is going to pull an upset, they're going to have to really kind of stifle the bonus points.
This is my fault. I don't know. Is Gomez out this weekend? Because he wrestled last weekend. I don't know if he has to go to do qualifiers and stuff for Team Mexico.
Yeah, I don't know, right? Like I said, like if Mayora's in there, but like if Gomez is back, I expect him to be throwing the kitchen sink, right? So hopefully Gomez is back, and like I said, I don't know if he is. So that's a big swing for Michigan if Gomez is in the lineup.
I'm trying to find out right now. Just shot a text.
Yeah, I mean, if you could do this while we're talking, kind of get some news of whether Gomez will be in the lineup, that'd be dope. But I wanna get to 57 because Will Lewan, it is such a contrast of styles. Like I said, if Mitch Moore is one of the stingiest, Will Lewan is right.
Gomez
he's right
is
there.
in 149. So
well, there you go. I mean, it kind of pays to be a Michigan guy these days, huh? You're kind of connected, I guess. So I mean that kind of changes things, right? Because Gomez is gonna to kind of backtrack before we even dig into 57 even more. Gomez is going to be looking bonus. Yeah. He is certainly going to be looking bonus. I wouldn't expect anything less from him, but like Ratchie's good, man. He's a tough kid. He's really trying to kind of solidify his spot in the lineup at 49. And, I think he's an up and comer. I think he's still kind of getting his feet under him, right? Like you've seen like glimpses of some really good wrestling from him. And I think he continues to kind of put it together. I mean, he's got only 3 losses on the year. So it's not like he's, having a terrible year by any stretch, but I think, it's going to be a huge test up against Gomez.
Yeah, so Gomez, from what you saw at the beginning of the year with Gomez versus now, it looks to me that his confidence and I think his confidence in his cardio is there, right? Mm-hmm. Like the guy we saw wrestle D'Amelio is definitely more ready to go than the guy we saw wrestle against South Dakota State. So,
yeah.
I
think he has a different mindset too, right? Like he's got if I'm going to be the best in the world, there's no way that I should be, losing against Ohio State. There's no way I should be losing here if I want to be the best in the world. If I want to be an NCAA champion, something that's completely escaped him. And to his credit, like look at his resume. He's got wins over some of the biggest and baddest, throwing RBY to his back and pinning him, beating Yanni, just a season ago. So like he's got like huge wins. So like if you're gonna be that kind of guy, I think the number one thing for him, at least at the NCAA level, is just consistency. I mean, you got to obviously have consistency on the world stage, but you got to be ultra consistent in NCAA because it's more of a grind, honestly, than it is on the world level. You weigh in a couple times on the world level. You weigh in a couple times a week during the NCAA season. So I think it's really just consistency for him.
It was fun hearing some stories about him at one of the qualifiers. And it was like, yeah, you weigh in the morning, and then you wait like 8 hours for all the other styles to go. And then you wrestle for 30 seconds, and then you wait 2 more hours, and then you wrestle for 30 more seconds.
Yeah.
It's just like, all right, that's your day, but you made it, you qualified. So
yeah. So that'll be fun. But yeah, 57, let's kind of go, back to 57. We were talking about it before you got the text that Gomez is going. That is a clash of styles, just completely. But like both guys are super stingy. Yeah. I just think that Franek is, obviously Franek is number 2 in the country for a reason, but like Frantic's going to go and look to score points, but his head hands defense is insane. And guys can get to Lewin's legs. You can get to it's. You've seen it. You've seen a lot of guys get there, and as good as and heavy as his hips are, and as heavy as his hands are, he just doesn't seem to have that gear that he needs anymore. And that's what, it's like, man, like you used to be ultra dynamic. We used to watch you in Fargo and watch you in high school. And then even when you came into the NCAA, you were just looking to score all the time. Where is that guy? What happened to that guy?
Yeah, it's tough because, like you said, they're both stingy, right? They're both going to keep the other people from scoring on him a ton. The thing that scares me, like, as a dude from Ann Arbor, is like the other guy's stingy moving forward and pushing the pace and taking up the mat space, whereas Will just seems super casual, moving around. The thing that is also interesting to me is, like, if we know this, like, they know this, they know, like, that's fine. They're like, you don't have to take down Willowan. You can just move him around the mat and get a couple stall calls and your escape, and
but that's frustrating. That's frustrating, especially for guys that want to score points. Like, man, stay in there, right? Like, let's continue to, let's scrap. So, like, I'm hopeful that he hits a gear or flips a switch at some point this year. Because, I mean, you even hear it during the broadcast of just like, is he going to take a shot? Where's this going? Like, are we going to get him to be offensive? Because, like I said, he used to be that offensive guy. So hopefully he does, bring that back and start to try and score points.
Well, again, you don't get to be any level, any age group world champion without having some solid offense. And that's what he was.
So hopefully we start to see it. 65, Cam Amin, Caliendo. I mean, this could be a scrap. I mean, Caliendo's wrestling great.
Right.
And the fact I look at this guy and I'm like, the fact that you make 165 is insane to me because he's thick. He's really big dude, huge thighs, just like strong as an ox. Like the fact that you make 65 is incredible, but like, I think Cam Amin's going to have to really move his feet. He's going to have to create some angles because Caliendo's coming forward, getting past those hands is not easy.
These are two dudes who have looked like polar opposites lately, right? I mean, one of the guys is trending up. The other guy has been trending down, lost the match to Fish of Michigan State, who's good. This is not a discount to him. But then he had to go to overtime against Rutgers, who is not their consistent starter by any means. And then he was out against Ohio State. So I don't know if that was an injury thing. I know he was battling some illness earlier in the year, but we don't have any recent data points, recent evidence that say that he's going to be able to go in there. And normally my fallback with Amin is he's strong. He makes other people wrestle his match. He changes the way that people are able to attack because of just his feel has got to be so different. But I don't have that feeling right now. So that'll be more interesting to me to see what ends up happening than not. But yeah, I mean, if you're going by rankings, or the rankings are Caliendo should win.
Yeah, and we've seen Amin be ultra dynamic. We've seen him scrap and scramble and score points. And I always kind of go back to NCAAs, watching him in the blood round and needing to score in overtime, right? Like that's the gritty guy that I'm used to. That's what I'm used to seeing is just like, he's going to go and score points and that's just what he's going to do. And you just haven't really seen that, and the Messenbrink match was like shocking because you don't expect Cam Amin to get a warning of the next one is a disqualification,
right?
When it comes to stalling, right? So seeing that, you're just like, man, like hopefully he can start to put it together. And I think him and Will are a couple of guys who kind of need to flip a switch. They need, maybe a confidence booster. Maybe it's a break, right? Maybe it's like a mind break where you just kind of give yourself a little bit. And I know Amin got that against Ohio State, but maybe it's a little bit more, before you get to that conference tournament.
These are not the same. So, but I'm going to use this analogy. Like my son recently was like, I just need a break from homework, and I was like, dude, that's what Christmas break was. All right,
Yeah.
you just had it. You need to get back in the routine now. Okay. So it's like maybe that's it too. Maybe it's again they're not the same. I'm not comparing apples to apples, but there's something to be said for routine and fighting through adversity versus that. And we're talking about generalities in sports psychology right now versus specific people. But yeah,
Yeah, I get it. It's just like, but something kind of has to give, right? You have to figure it out at some point to get over the hump, because right now you're not really seeing it from guys that you would expect to see it from. The back half of the lineup, it's gonna be tough. It's kind of I mean, it's not. I wouldn't say it's a toss up at 84, but 74. You you think bonus points possibly, unless, and I'm saying in Iowa's favor, unless Michigan does something at 74.
you think Patrick Kennedy's going to get bonus points against?
Sorry, not against Shane Griffith. Sorry, um, I'm looking at a completely different lineup. I think that, and this is actually probably goes into the realm of guys that need to score more points. Shane Griffith has had a tough year, right? I'm kind of backtracking. I'm looking at a wrong lineup. Shane Griffith has had a tough year, and Patrick Kennedy, we saw him come out. What was it? The Iowa State match was I think his first one where he was definitely gassed in that.
Yeah.
One. But ever since then, he's really been trending up. So I think it's going to be. This could be one of those matches where we say Shane Griffith is turning a corner because Patrick Kennedy is on the up and up. Yeah. So it could be one of those types of matches.
If you get the Patrick Kennedy that pushes the pace and that the only one that I knew, right, up until that Iowa State duel where he was kind of working his way back in, that Patrick Kennedy is just the Energizer Bunny of wrestling, right? He's just gonna, instead of pounding the drum, he's gonna pound on your head and try to figure out a way to get.
And I think that's the guy he tried to be against Iowa State, but the lungs and the legs weren't there yet.
Yeah. And hey, to his credit, that's how you find out, right? But but I think Shane he hasn't looked dominant, right? But he's winning more matches than he's losing by a long shot. And I think he's going to be able to do all right in there. I think he's going to be able to hold his own. And hopefully he can get it done. But, I think that's what makes this duel so intriguing is that, like we said earlier, right? Iowa's fallen into place, and Michigan, there's a lot more questions right now.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, so hopefully we see the Shane Griffith of old, and hopefully we see the Kennedy of old, right? Like that will be an amazing match, potential to be the match of the night, with those two guys being, like I said, Kennedy being kind of on that upward spiral, and Griffith needing to kind of turn the corner. So, I mean, he did get the win over Rocco Welsh, but that was a tight one too. So it's just like a lot of tight wins for Shane Griffith this year. And I think we talked about it before. Maybe he's just still trying to get acclimated to the weight, or it's just different, right? Like, and who knows? Maybe he's banged up and nobody knows. But like, you're just, for an NCAA champion and a multiple time finalist, you think, is this the guy that we're going to see the rest of the year?
I was just checking last year's brackets to see if they ran into each other at NCAAs, and they would have met in the blood round, but Julian Ramirez beat Kennedy. So then Griffith beat Ramirez.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Close. So this will be potentially the first time that they meet. So we'll see. Both guys in a new weight class this year. So I think I'm taking Griffith in that one, but would not be surprised at all if Kennedy came out guns blazing and put a lot of points up.
If you're gonna beat him, I think that's the way to do it. You don't keep it close and hope to, get the last win against Shane Griffith. He usually gets that.
Yeah. what's happening in the back half of the lineup for Michigan?
So you should have Jaden Bullock at 184.
Yeah.
He didn't look great against Ohio State, but we were talking before we really started recording here, and Rogatsky is just a just dynamite. He just explodes. He's got crazy stuff. He figures, I'm going to go big, and if I give it up, then I'll just not get pinned, and I'll just do it again later and make up those points, right? So, against Bullock in the Ohio State duel, he just got it every time. So it was a tech ball, which, is the goal. But I would expect Bullock to be in there. I would expect him to be aggressive. I would expect him to try to get back on track. It's who do we got here? Oh, Aiden Riggins. I would think he should be able to get that done. He's so good on his feet. He's good enough on top. I was there watching him wrestle Soldano for Rutgers. Soldano, excuse me. Soldano. And, Soldano's super dangerous and has some funky stuff he can throw at him. And he was coached well enough and smart enough to make sure he was not getting himself into trouble there. By the power of transitive authority, I think that Soldano's probably better than Riggins.
Yeah.
And therefore, Jaden Bullock should get that done.
Yeah.
Now, 197, they're figuring it out, man. They haven't really had the right answer there for a while. I know they had Yatuma in for a minute, and I think he is hurt. I know they had Rylan Rogers in there the last couple duels, and he's had some good wrestlers he's gone up against. He hasn't won. So it'll be interesting to see who they end up throwing out there. They don't. And
isn't Rogers normally an 84 too? Like he's not a 97 either.
No, he's not a 97. I think his natural weight is and probably should be 184. But Bullock's earned the spot. So it'll be interesting to see what they end up doing there. But it's gonna be interesting to say the least. I mean, they don't really have a set answer or person there yet. But
yeah. And in heavyweight, man, I tell you what, I really hope we see Keeter and Davison.
Yeah.
I do. I mean, I don't know how much more we're gonna see Keeter this year. I'm hopeful that both Keeter and Gabe Arnold are in the lineup when they see Penn State.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm hoping for Keeter versus Davison. I think that'll be a really good bout, and I think it'll honestly be a really good bout for Keeter because he's still getting his legs under him. And you've seen Iowa be very strategic with where they put him out, and he got the pin up against Northwestern, but like he hasn't really tested himself yet. I think that the first test was more of a test of his endurance than anything. Because, I mean, I'll tell you what, football shape and wrestling shape, they do not go together whatsoever.
They're not the same thing.
They're not the same thing. And you saw that for sure. And he even said that, he said he didn't like how he wrestled and he's got to get better and everything else. But, I think it's just a matter of the lungs and the legs being synced up. And once you get them synced up, you're in a lot better shape. But like, I would like to see him go out against Davison. I think that would be a really good test for him. I think it would be a really good gauge for Iowa as well. You still kind of don't know what you have in Ben Keeter, right? He's good. He's going to be good if he continues to wrestle the way that we've seen him wrestle in the past. Like, he's going to fill that singlet fully and wholeheartedly. Mm-hmm. But I think at this point, you're only going to get a select few matches to really gauge what you're going to get from Ben, at least this season, right? I don't expect him to come out of red shirt. I think they're going to give him his 5 and, allow him to kind of get back in the swing of things a little bit better. But yeah, I would love to see him wrestle this weekend.
I think it'd be a good one. I mean, the body style matchup is, you're not going to run into a whole lot of guys that look like Lucas Davison. There's probably like 10 of them, on the planet. No. But at least in college wrestling, right? And Keeter can and should eventually fill into something like that too, right? But I think, if you've got the matches to put him out there against somebody who can match him athletically, you should probably give him that feel, right?
Yeah.
Now, who knows what they have planned? Who knows if they're thinking to themselves, hey, Davison's coming off a loss. He's probably going to be pissed off too. But, that doesn't seem like the Iowa way to be like, to think that way, right?
Yeah.
Probably thinking, good, put him out there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
And we all want to see it.
Exactly, right? And like even kind of to that note, I think they get strategic, right? If the bout is out of reach at that point, maybe they throw them out just to see what happens, right? I mean, I can honestly see it both ways. They're like, hey, we need bonus. Go get bonus. Something along those lines, because I'm sure they'll have the utmost confidence in Keeter, even up against even a guy like Davison. But that'll be a huge test for Keeter. So, I guess that's more heavyweight wishes there of hopefully seeing Ben Keeter wrestle Lucas Davison.
Well, this is better than the heavyweight wishes we used to have, which was like, I wish I had to go to the bathroom during heavyweight. This is the good kind.
Yeah, this is definitely the good kind. And speaking of heavyweights, let's talk about the giant NCAA wrestling team, which is Penn State. And they've got Ohio State. I don't think it'll be close. I think there's at least a 10-point gap between the two. But there's going to be some fireworks. There's certainly going to be some bouts that are going to be way better than others. I think, we don't have to go weight by weight, but I think, before we hopped on, we said 33 and 41 are going to be absolutely insane. And, I think that 33 with Nagao and Bouzakis, two guys that have crazy motors.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be high scoring. I think you have, 15, 20 points on the board at the end of that one, honestly.
Absolutely. I mean, Bouzakis is not going to stop attacking, He's not going to stop trying to push the pace and eventually break the person. And Nagao is just crafty as all hell, He's got his low level kind of dive in shots that he's going to try and get from time to time, but you saw him against Ragusin too. He would just kind of do this crafty stuff where he'd kind of cut the corner and then he'd pull him into a crab ride and just start hitting turns from there. So, I mean, both of these guys are going to try to get the other one to kind of fall into their trap one way or another. And they both seem to have this idea, kind of like I was saying about Rogotsky, like, well, it'll work the next time. And so that's going to be super fun.
Yeah, it will be. It certainly will be. And 41, man, if Jesse Mendez has the crazy motor that we've seen him wrestle with earlier in the year, I can see him pulling out the win. Because, yes, Bo Bartlett can score in bunches, and I think he can definitely match the pace of Jesse Mendez. But I just think that the overall pressure that Mendez would put on him is kind of like the same pressure that I saw Bo Bartlett under in the U.S. Open final, right? Like it's not that Bo Bartlett couldn't withstand it, but it just got a little overwhelming. And you saw him, give up points. And obviously freestyle is different than folk style, but you saw him give up points. You saw him give up takedowns, stuff like that. So, I think Mendez has a similar kind of gas tanking style that could be, I wouldn't say a clash because, like I said, Bo Bartlett can go, but we've seen Mendez wrestle a little bit higher of a pace than Bartlett this year.
Yeah, he's definitely shown that he's out there to score points. He's out there to attack and attack and attack, and he's out there to chain wrestle, and he's going to put some things together that are designed to put you on your back. Where the only concern, right, and this is dumb because it's literally the only loss he has, but I feel like a guy like Cole Matthews, who is going to be more defensive and counter than anything else, kind of matches the style of Bo Bartlett a bit. He's going to be more defensive and try to hit some counter attacks and those sorts of things. And maybe that changes the game plan up, but I also think that, they're coached well enough for Mendez to really know, here's what happened in that match that you need to not allow to happen again.
Yeah.
And his pace I think will eventually earn him the win there.
Yeah. What other matches do you kind of have circled in this one where we could see something unexpected, right? What's something that you're just like that could be a sneaky good bout?
Well, I mean, I think 149 is going to be interesting. And I haven't seen enough of Tyler Kasich to feel like I have a good understanding of his approach and his style and his results. He's got a great record. He's ranked 12th now, it looks like. And but I'd like to see him against D'Amelio. I mean, that's just going to be fun for me to see and get a real good gauge of where the freshman is against another redshirt senior.
Yeah.
That one's going to be a fun one. I want to see 65 through heavyweight too. Anytime I get like, this is the crazy thing about this Penn State team is I think it was Willie that had a tweet the other day about like their current national rankings and about if they wrestle to their current rankings that they'll end up with 166 team points or something like that at NCAA's, and which is still not the highest. Shout out 97 Hawkeyes, but it's an insane team. It's an insane team top to bottom. And again, this is without Shane Van Ness.
Yeah.
So like they're not going through injury issues or the same things that anyone else is going through. So I'm just really, really excited to see this Penn State team against another really good opponent. I know that they've wrestled other good opponents and wiped the floor with them, but let's see it again. It's pretty cool to watch.
Yeah. And I mean, you mentioned Van Ness, and the funny thing is like he's, number 1, number 2 in the country, right? He's top ranked guy. But then he goes out and they're just like, all right, well, we have another fringe top 10 guy that we're going to throw in the lineup, in Kasich. So it's just like, man, like he's literally the highest ranked guy on their team, and he's number 12.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like that's just insane, just absolutely insane, right? And then, we can talk about all the accolades up and down, but I think the 125 curse for Penn State, and we talked about it last week too, it could be gone, right? Like it could be that Braden Davis just mans that spot from now on, right? Maybe at some point they give him a red shirt, but I don't know. I mean, I think it's his spot until he says it's not now.
Maybe they pass their curse onto all of the other teams. Maybe that's why nobody can hold the spot anymore, Yeah, it's crazy, man. I'm super pumped. I mean, again, Michigan guy and Braden Davis, and he's killing it out there. True freshman, just keeping it rolling.
Yeah, he had a pretty big fan base when they came to town, didn't he? I think I heard a lot of cheers for him on TV.
So where Dundee is, at least, is probably 30 minutes from Ann Arbor.
Okay.
It's not far, maybe 20, depending on how fast you're driving, I guess. But we used to drive down to a Waffle House in Toledo, which was about 40 minutes. So it's kind of near there.
Yeah. Man. Didn't realize it was that close.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he definitely he probably had more fans there than the Michigan fans themselves.
Mm-hmm. Might have.
But he looks good though, and they haven't had a guy in that spot to really take over and man that spot, and he's already third ranked wrestler in the country, and but I think it took a little bit for Penn State to figure it out, but then they were like, man, this kid just keeps winning, like he just keeps beating everyone, and right now he's at 13-0. He's one of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 undefeated wrestlers in their lineup. Like, just insane the amount of zeros in the loss column that these guys have. Like, but the wild thing about that is that they have collectively 3 losses.
Mm-hmm.
The entire team, 3 losses.
Did you know that he's the only undefeated 125 in the country?
Yeah.
At least in the top 30 or whatever. Like, yeah. The team total 3 losses, huh?
Team total is 3 losses. Nagao has 2. Excuse me, 4 losses. Nagao has 2, Kasich has 1, and Truax has 1.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else is undefeated.
Wow.
Messenbrink has the most matches at 14. He's 14-0.
They do, and again, maybe this is, I assume, by design. They just manage their guys, matches. They're getting them ready. They'll send them some big tournaments, maybe.
Very well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, good to see that Srirachi's back in the lineup and he finally has 8 matches, and that the coaches ranking can look the way that everybody wants it to look with Carter Srirachi at number 1, because they were kind of freaked out about that. But man, I think, not to jump too far ahead, but if Srirachi and Brooks continue on this trend, I think they're sharing a Hodge trophy at the end of the year.
Well, I was going to ask a dumb question. That's definitely never happened before, where teammates share a Hodge. I mean, I guess he could have been, if you were going to make that argument, it probably could have been David Taylor and Ed Ruth back then too,
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, we had Spencer and Gable,
right,
that shared it. I don't know if teammates have probably never shared it. So like, could you imagine, like, and you're right, we could have had Taylor and Ed Ruth. They could have shared a Hodge trophy that year. But like, I don't see how they separate those two.
Yeah, that's going to be really tough to do, because neither of them. I'm going back to rankings again.
Because they came in the same year, right? They were both freshman champs. They've been 3 times.
No. Aaron Brooks was a year older.
He's a year older, so he has yes. He did redshirt though. So they both have 3 right now.
Yeah.
They would be 4-time champs, potentially undefeated with the trajectory that they're on now.
Here's the crazy thing too. All right, so like 174, I was going to make the argument that, okay, well, Mekhi Lewis and Shane Griffith were at least previous NCAA champions, right? So you have to look at that and maybe weigh that into, like, okay, well, hey, Srirachi had a tougher weight, but then you look at 197, and there are 3 guys that are undefeated, 4 guys if you if you count Zach Glazier. But yeah, Aaron Brooks, Stephen Buchanan, and Trent Hidley. Hidley. That's what it is.
It's Hidley.
Okay, Hidley. My apologies, gentlemen. But those guys are all there too, right? And those guys are as credentialed, and yeah, I mean, it's going to be nuts to see. Like, my point is, they're probably equally as difficult to win either of those weights.
Yeah,
both of those guys are kind of untouchable too. So I'd be cool with that. I'm not usually a share the Hodge guy, but I am in this case.
Yeah, me neither. I would not want to see. I mean, I didn't really want to see it the year that it was Spencer and Gable, but you kind of understood, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're just like, who else are they going to really give it to? Mm-hmm. So honestly, if Carter and Aaron both win another NCAA title, go undefeated, most likely, I mean, at this point, Aaron has 1 more match than Carter. So he's 9-0, Carter's 8-0. If they end up with identical records, number 1 from wire to wire for 3 straight years, Carter Srirachi hasn't lost a match since his freshman year. Aaron Brooks lost one last year. I think they, and at that point, you can't say that it's like a lifetime achievement either. Like, these guys, wire to wire, number 1, like undefeated, like unblemished, like they, strength of competition is at the same level. So I think we see it, honestly. I love Trent Hidley, but like, it's gonna take a lot of underhooks to beat Aaron Brooks, and let's call it what it is. Aaron Brooks has a very good underhook as well. So he knows how to use that underhook and kind of tool it and do the things that he needs to do with it. So it'll be a surefire battle at 97 if it is Hidley and Brooks. And the way Hidley's wrestling right now, I can't see really anybody else meeting Brooks in the finals.
Oh, Buchanan. I mean, like, you'd have to see that match, which we're not going to see probably before NCAAs, but
yeah.
I will say something about Brooks. So at Big Tens last year, like you watch Aaron Brooks wrestle, and the physicality doesn't come through the TV the way it does in person.
Hmm.
Like the way that he and Romero were just clubbing each other, and he was right in Romero's face, and it was just boom, 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 and it was like that's I see it, I get it now.
Yeah.
It's punishing. It's just it was wild to see in person how just mean it looked. But it
Yeah.
was obviously like I'm not saying he's a dirty wrestler. Don't get me wrong. It's not that at
No,
all. It's just
it's legal
crazy.
clubs.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. It was wild.
It's I mean, Aaron Brooks, he's definitely one of my favorite people. I've known him since he was high school sophomore, junior, I think it was. His trajectory has been otherworldly. Like he was a kid that people knew about but didn't really know about coming out of obviously Hagerstown, Maryland.
Hmm.
The funny thing about him is he wrestled and won the state tournament at like 130 pounds or something like that. And then that same year won Fargo at 152. So like just crazy weight jump within like a couple of months and ended
Hmm.
up winning Fargo. And him and Trent Hidley go all the way back to those Fargo days. And the whizzer kick that Aaron Brooks hit Trent Hidley with on the edge of the mat was just absolutely insane, and nobody expected it. Everybody really thought that Trent Hidley was going to kind of underhook and overpower Aaron Brooks right off the mat, and Brooks was like, "No, not happening." And it's just been that type of climb for Aaron Brooks for
Hmm.
years and years and years, winning world titles, and and now a lot of people have him circled to compete with David Taylor. I mean, let's call it
Hmm.
what it is. I mean, they both made it to the finals of the World Team Trials last year, and you know Brooks is ultra competitive and ultra confident, and he really feels that if anyone is going to knock off David Taylor, it should be him. Like you just know he has that mindset. And, like I said, I've known him for a very long time. And it's not really something that I've ever talked to him about, but like you just can see it in how he wrestles. Of like, if anyone's going to beat one of the people that is potentially on the Mount Rushmore, it's got to be me. And
Hmm.
he doesn't want it to really be anybody else. So like I said, that's why I don't see anybody really beating him this year. It's going to take a stick of dynamite and, a big old shot of whiskey in order to get it done. And it's not going to be easy. So, I see Aaron Brooks winning another title. I see Carter Sirachi winning another title. And that's why I was just like, man, could it potentially happen that we see these guys end up sharing the Hodge? And as you said, teammates have never done it.
Yeah, I'm convinced if this is how it ends up, I'm cool with it. I'm cool with it.
Yeah. I know we kind of, went on a tangent. Let's kind of get back to the other matchup at 285 that I'm kind of looking forward to. And I don't think that Feldman is on Kirkfleet's level, but I think it is a very good test for a young kid, similar to what we were talking about with Keeter and Davison.
Hmm.
I think that this is a good test for Feldman to really see where he's at. You're only going to get a chance to wrestle Kirkfleet, 1 year.
Hmm.
So have at it, go out swinging. You have nothing to lose right now.
Well, and that's the thing too is you there aren't very many guys as big as Kirk Fleet that move as well as Kirk Fleet, right?
Yeah.
And to get a feeling for what that is like, and to get an idea for what that is like, you're not gonna get an upset over a guy like that. A, maybe ever, right? But B,
Yeah.
definitely not the first time. So you got to feel him here. Maybe again at Big Tens at some level or some round there, and if you're gonna get a chance to do it, you'd want to get your hands on him a couple times.
Yeah.
So you expect to see. I mean, you expect Kirk Fleet to do what he's probably feels destined to do this year, right? And run through the competition and win it all. Um, but if you're a young guy like Feldman who just got a big win over Davison and is feeling pretty high right now, hey, go after it, man. Go unload your clip, see what you can do.
Yeah. It's
See if
definitely
it
going to take
bounces
that.
off RoboCop and
Yeah.
then he kills you anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Kerfleet is a mammoth human being. And I mean, he's always been that type of kid. And, I can remember him wrestling Gable in high school when they made that match happen. And it was just like, insane to see two giants that weren't even on the college level yet that had just the athleticism and ability that these two guys had, and you just knew that they were going to certainly be on top of the podium at least once. Gable obviously was able to reach that Kirkfleet, was able to do that. At least he's going for it. Right. So like, it'll happen. It'll certainly happen. But like, man, he's a giant.
I completely forgot that I watched that match. Yeah. You said that. I was like, oh yeah, I remember watching that. That was years ago. Was it my brother-in-law's house at their countertop? I remember that.
Yep. So yeah, it's funny. Like you look at Penn State's lineup, and as competitive as they are, you're just like, man, what is going to happen to them next year? Right. Obviously you're kind of putting the cart before the horse right now, but like they're just mowing teams down. And like I said, I don't expect this to be close with them in Ohio State. Ohio State's battled certainly this year.
Yeah.
But I don't expect, them to really slow down this year. I think everyone is just kind of on their way to another title. But man, like who do they have coming, right? Who's going to be the guy to replace Carter Sarachi? Who's going to be a guy that replaces Aaron Brooks? Kirkfleet, right? Like who are these next guys, right? And we said the same thing with David Taylor and Ed Ruth, and they just kind of reloaded the clip with even more champions. But like, who are these kids that they have coming? Is like my question as you look at a lineup full of just absolute stud seniors.
Yeah, this is a team that is very special, and we should appreciate it for what it is. I tweeted this out about Dayton Fix too. I'm going to appreciate all the Dayton Fix matches we have left because he's been fun to watch. Same with Vito, same with, a lot of these guys that are finishing out their careers. And, we made jokes over the years, right? Obviously about these guys having these extra years and everything. And, that guy's got his AARP card and he's still wrestling. But, the reality is it's like, yeah, when you have the chance, do it. And some of those guys are really starting to cycle out now. And, we're going to get some more new faces, which will be good. Doesn't mean we won't miss the old ones, too.
Yeah, the 6-year guys will be coming to an end pretty quickly. We won't have any of those guys, after a little bit. But I'll tell you what, if I could have gotten a 6th year and stayed in college and continued to compete and my body was holding up, I would have did it too. Certainly would have. So I don't blame any of these guys. Like, they talk about how old these guys are. Who cares? Go compete, guys. Like, you can do it. More power to you. But this is going to be a good weekend of Big Ten wrestling. Excited to see it, certainly. I'm obviously taking Penn State over Ohio State. I think that they just have way too much firepower, obviously. I think the Michigan-Ohio duel is going to be a little bit closer than what people expect, but I'm still taking Iowa.
Yeah. I think that's probably fair. I was going to say about the Penn State and Ohio State one, it's very, you'd have to get, it's hard to get 1 or 2 upsets. You'd have to get like 5 in that one, right? And minimum, because you're going to get bonus points at a couple of those other weights. Michigan, Iowa, you'd have to have a lot of things. For as well as things are sliding into place for Iowa this year, it would all have to slide into place for Michigan on Friday for that to work out. But, hey, that's why they wrestle the matches.
Exactly. So, certainly wouldn't be the first time I was proved wrong or made a wrong pick. So is what it is. Prove me wrong. I honestly love being proved wrong by good wrestling. So go right ahead and do it. But it's going to be a good weekend. I think that there's going to be some sneaky good matches that we didn't expect or that we probably didn't even talk about to kind of come out of both of those. And I'm looking forward to it.
It's going to be fun.